the economic issue of the moment is inflation. And so this last month, we will actually get a new inflation data point in 2 more days. But the most recent figure that dropped was 7.5%, the highest inflation rate in over 40 years. Right now, the consensus forecast in the Wall Street Journal survey that we're a part of is for a 7.8% figure to drop in 2 days. And so this is almost, for those of us who weren't adults or older in the 70s, this is unimaginable inflation, right? Through the 80s and 90s, we didn't experience anything like this. More importantly, I think the most important figure that captures what inflation means for the U.S. economy is to actually look at average weekly wages. So wages have gone up, but nowhere near the amount necessary to recover the loss of standard of living that individuals have suffered during the last year. Average weekly earnings in real terms after accounting for inflation declined 3.1% across the United States over the last 12 months. And so that's to say this hits home. Now, we take a very strong position on what the source of this inflation is. You've already gotten a preview with it. Danielle is of the same mind. But we believe that this is not simply the result of the unique ways in which the pandemic affected the supply chain and other aspects of the economy. There is no doubt that through the channel of particular categories of prices like used and new vehicles, that there was an impact of the pandemic on prices. But we see this as unmistakable monetary and fiscal inflation. This is data now. This is not just PPP loans. This is all of the different categories of relief that were passed over nearly 2 years. And this is considering a family of 4 living here in the state of California. So first of all, if you're a family of 4 and you qualified for every single piece of relief, the maximum benefit was $110,000. And the average benefit, obviously not very many people meet all of those categories, but the average benefit was $65,000. That is about the same as the median income in the state of California, right? And so this is money that was pushed out into family balance sheets, and so of course that's a lot of money chasing goods. Now there's a very, very strong monetary component to this. There's a number of quotes that I think people may regret. She already mentioned Powell may regret ever using the word transitory, and my hope is that Neil Kashkari will regret using the word infinite, all right, at some point. So he actually said this in March 2020 to reassure the American people there is an infinite amount of money in the Federal Reserve. Well, so let's show you what an infinite amount looks like. This is what it looks like. It looks like $9 trillion in assets, treasuries, mortgage-backed securities purchased by the federal government. A remarkable number. $9 trillion. If we look in terms of the money supply, right? The money. This is the amount of money in circulation, M2 in the United States, and you see that it increased 30%. Right? The money supply increased 30%, and because of a fiscal channel, through all these relief packages, it went directly into family balance sheets. And not surprisingly, the savings rate soared. So the pre-pandemic savings rate was between 7 and 8%, and it soared to almost 34% during 2020 when those, and that's to say, it wasn't even serving the purpose, which was very critically to protect the livelihoods of families who had been displaced from work, right, who had been shut out of work through no fault of their own. But the amount of money that was spent dramatically exceeded all of the foregone income and activity, and the money supply increased dramatically, 30%. And so that's to say 7.5%, so those are the students in the room who know the quantity theory of money, right? 7.5% could go for a very long time. And that we believe and have been arguing for 2 years that this could be a very persistent and challenging problem for the government going forward. You don't have to take our word for it. You can believe economic actors, people betting on these processes. This is stunning to believe. This is the New York Federal Reserve survey. They survey inflation expectations. What do people expect the inflation rate to be? And currently, the median 1 year ahead inflation expectation 6.7. So people believe 1 year from now, inflation will be 6.7. And this one is arresting. The median 3 year ahead inflation expectation is 5%. And so economic actors believe that inflation is going to be persistent. This is something that the CERF has been talking about for a while. It's nice to find others, professionals, echoing the same thing. There was a time where we felt utterly alone in our criticism of this. So this is from February 2020, when we filled out the monthly Wall Street Journal survey. We're often asked to score, just with a simple letter grade, the Federal Reserve. What's amazing is, way back in those days, let's see, 63% plus 15%, so about close to 80% of economic forecasters gave the Fed an A or a B. Lonely Dan Hamilton and myself were literally the only forecasters in the entire survey, 70 forecasting houses, to give him an F. They actually quoted us. We asked, does an IRS audit usually follow a quote like this? But I'm happy to say neither of us has been audited, all right? So that was pre-pandemic. We actually, mid-pandemic, unfortunately, the consensus had moved even farther. Dan and I were even more alone. So 97% gave them an A or a B. There was one C and there was one F. And so that's to say, it has felt a little bit lonely. In terms of words, they didn't quote us this time, but I do want to point out words people may regret. Here's an economist in the survey who said, like a good engineer, Powell opened the floodgates. All right, opened the floodgates. And what's strange is you see things like this, and you say, how didn't everyone understand that inflation was just around the corner, right? That if we were opening the floodgates, that's what would happen. If there's an infinite amount of money, right? That is a persistent inflationary story, right? And one we've been telling. And so not only have Dan and I felt alone, I do also want to sort of share with you, get this off our chest too, we're not only alone, we're not serious, right? And so you might remember this. This is from the President's press office, July 20th, when he said, there's nobody suggesting that there's unchecked inflation. Well, at least there's no serious economist. All right. There you go, the unserious economist at CERF.